Hello everyone, lovely to see so many of you on this November evening. So tonight's session is a Futures Favourites session for 2024. So I am showing you tonight the 10 series. I've slightly cheated because I was going to go 10 main list / non-fiction and 10 fiction. I've slightly cheated because I've gone more like series, so covering multiple books just to get more books in. But the 10 non-fiction and 10 fiction that I think you will sell the best next year. There are so many amazing books coming out next year. And one thing I will say, I think it's the year of the vehicle next year. So for anyone who feels like there have not been enough vehicle themed books, next year is your year, which is great for me because I have a 2-year-old son and he is obsessed with vehicles. So I'm probably going to spend half my wages on these vehicle-based books for him. So I will share my screen. Also a caveat, some of these books don't have covers yet because they're so far in the future, but I'll give you the full description. I've included spreads of the insides where they've got them, but again, because it's the whole of 2024 I'm covering, some of the stuff is still in drafting stage. So it's a real like sneak preview of what is to come. Where's it gone? Okay, so firstly, main list. So main list is what we call anything that we make ourselves. So in case you didn't know, most of Usborne's books are created by Usborne. So we have loads of in-house editors and designers. We outsource illustration, actually, to say. So we pay freelance illustrators. They draw the illustrations and then our designers compile them to make the books of the editors. But the majority of what we publish, we make ourselves in-house. That's quite unusual. Most other publishers buy things in from elsewhere. Our fiction, we do buy in. So main list, some of it is fiction, just to confuse you all. But essentially what we mean by this is what we've read in-house and fiction is what we bought from elsewhere. So the first series to show you, I actually do have the book, because the first one is coming out in January. So this is a new series. This is aimed at 1+. It feels quite sturdy. I don't know if any of you own a flap ripper. My daughter was always very careful, my son not so much. This feels incredibly sturdy to me. I think it's fairly child-proof, so you probably could share it with a younger child and be fairly confident that they're not going to rip the pages off. They're $7.99, which I think is quite a good price point. And what happens is, as you read the stories, so this one's about a little bear. He loves hugs, and he's asking if other animals love hugs too. And he goes through the little story, and as he goes through the story, you turn the pages and the animals end up hugging, which is very cute. But as Bear is going through, he sees like squirrels, but he can't hug the squirrels because they're in a tree and that's too high for him. And then the otters hug, but he can't hug like the otters because it's a bit wet for him. And it goes on. So there's kind of like a subtle layer of learning about different animals, different habitats. You could start up conversations about similarities and differences with children and how like we might all like the same thing, but we're all slightly different and how different families are different. So I think like at surface level, it's a cute story with hugging animals, but I feel like there's a lot more that you can draw on from these books. What I will say is I've not seen Dinosaurs Love Hugs, so I'm not sure how deep Dinosaurs Love Hugs is and whether it is in fact just the bears that teaches you about the environment and the wider world. There was a lot of debate when people were making these books, like, can animals actually hug? Can dinosaurs hug? Are dinosaurs' arms long enough to hug? So a lot of thought went into these books, but they're very, very sweet, and I think will be a great addition to you guys' stalls, particularly if you do a lot of baby and toddler groups. I think they'll be brilliant for that. Or if you are working with nurseries, because these are quite sturdy, I think they're a good nursery purchase. They should hopefully last the hands of many children, having a good look at those. So yes, super, super cute. So that's Bear Loves Hugs is coming in January. So you guys will actually get this in December, and Dinosaurs Love Hugs is coming in March. The next ones to go through with you are, we have got three types of adventure game books. So you've got the oldest one, which you should be familiar with. So I don't have it because it's not in the office yet. So the oldest one is Goblin's Revenge. So this is aimed at 9+. This one's coming in February. There's a few in this series already. So there's Curse Breaker, Shadow Chaser, and there is also, please write along in the comments if you can remember, the League of Thieves is the other one. So these books, they're quite thick. They are quite challenging. I know a lot of adults have said they struggled with them, but if you're not familiar with these books, it's a choose your own adventure type book. I loved these books, and so did my brother when we were children. So basically you read through the story and then you get a series of choices of where the adventure takes you next, and then you turn to that page. There's puzzles to solve. Within the books, there's kind of illustrations to look through, and it's one of those books that you can enjoy again and again and again. So I think it's a great value purchase because you could read it over and over again. It's fun to do as a family. It's great for the kind of like screen-free time, but you feel like it's a more active book to read because you're constantly making choices, which I think keeps readers engaged. This is one of our best-selling series, and I would say an absolute must-have. Probably not for a baby and toddler group, but pretty much any event you do, I would say make sure you've got a stack of these because you will 100% sell them. Please do, I won't review the chat while I'm talking because I'm not that good at multitasking, but please do comment in the chat if you think you're going to sell these books, if you've done well with others in the series, where you think you might sell them, kind of any thoughts. I'm sure everyone would love to see them. So that is the Goblin's Revenge that is coming. We've also got Super Squirrel and the Crazy Rainmaker. So this is much younger, and we've got Puzzle Adventures, The Mummy Mystery, which is also much younger. Super Squirrel is cheaper at $5.99. Puzzle Adventures is $6.99. Puzzle Adventures, there's already one out so far in that series. So that is the Missing Unicorn. That is already out. And I've got some spreads to show you, not from the Mummy Mystery, because it's not at that stage yet, but I have got some from Super Squirrel. So I'll show you Super Squirrel first of all. So sorry, there's stuff in the way everywhere, but there's a limit to how many places I can move stuff and still see the book. So this one, so it's more kind of contemporary. The other one is historical, and the Curse Breaker is kind of real fantasy. So yeah, this one is about a squirrel that is trying to solve a mystery. So there's little, like not much text, quite simple text, very large pictures, and you have to complete the puzzles. So like in this one, you've got to move the car around to try and find the clear route. So it's kind of combining like the maze type books with an actual storyline as well to follow. So again, it's really fun to do with your children, or more confident readers would be able to read this on their own. It really varies the style. So again, it's really good for reluctant readers because they're not just reading flat text the whole time. So there's different styles of puzzle for them to complete. So this one's more like comic strip style. So that's Super Squirrel. This is the Missing Unicorn, which is already out now. So the other Puzzle Adventures, just to confuse everyone, slightly more difficult in terms of reading age. These are all historical. So the Mummy Mystery is obviously set in ancient Egypt, so it's quite fun to get that like shot of history as well, and to find out a bit more about history. But again, it's that more like subtle learning, finding out some key facts as you go. So again, these ones have picture puzzles to solve. Again, they mix up the text style, but you can see this is definitely more complex than the other one to read. I do wonder whether they'll lower the recommended reading age of the Super Squirrel one compared to this one, because it's definitely much simpler. So again, they've got kind of like questions to work through and answer in this. This is more picture based, so it is really varied, really mixed, perfect for reluctant readers. But also, I remember having books like this as a child. I definitely, surprisingly, was not a reluctant reader, and I absolutely love them. And sometimes it's nice to just give your brain in terms of reading books a break as you're kind of reading, but enjoying the puzzles at the same time. So the adventure game books have been hugely popular. I know lots of you have been wanting younger versions because they're quite dense, the adventure game books. And here are your younger versions. These two that are coming out, this series, I'm reliably informed by people that have been partners much longer than I've been working for Usborne, are like a revamp of books that used to exist. And this came into the office last week, which I was very excited about, so I can show you an actual book. So you've got Trucks coming in February, Diggers coming in May. These are 1+, and they're $7.99, and they are a flap book. The pages are really nice and glossy, I will say, and they're quite they're larger in terms of size. I'm trying to think if I'll compare it to this one. So the Peep Inside series, this I would say is like the younger version of that. So the like Peep Inside a Crane, Peep Inside a Fire Engine. I think this is the younger version, because I found with my son who's 2, he's a bit little for Peep Inside a Crane, but I think this will be right up his street. But this is larger, if you can see, in format. So what I really liked about this, so you've got different types of trucks. You've got a storyline and you've got a central thread that connects every page. So there is a pink cat hiding on every page. So kind of like the duck, but a cat. And you have to lift the flaps to find the pink cat. But as you're lifting the flaps, you're learning about the different trucks. So to be fair, it took me longer than it should have done to find the cat on some of these pages. So look, you've got like you can't see my hand, can you? The little pink cat is hiding there. So it explains about the different formats of the different trucks. As we know, kids love a flap book. This one's in the desert, if you fancy being a little bit jazzier with that. And then you've got the pink cat. I think the pink cat's in the car, the cab of the truck this time. So you've got all the different types of trucks, what they do, what their function is, and then you've got that added fun thing to do with your child of trying to find the pink cat as you go. And there's a fire engine at the end, which I think it's a real crowd pleaser of a vehicle. So Lift and Look Trucks, I think, is going to be an amazing seller for you guys, because I think it does fill that gap in the market of my daughter. She is not obsessed with vehicles. My son has been obsessed with vehicles since before he was 1. But the other vehicle books, I think, are just a bit old for him, particularly as he's quite forceful with a flap. But this one, I think, is perfect for that, filling that gap of what do you recommend to a vehicle-obsessed child that's a little bit little for the Peep Inside vehicles. And it's this series. Again, I think it'd be a good one for nurseries and great for your baby and toddler groups, those of you that do them. This next one, so this series, there are loads and loads of books in this series. I've realised I've written notes as well. I've totally ignored them. So I'll uncover my notes. I've put books on top of them to help you with that as well. So this is the latest in the very first questions and answers series that is coming out in February. There is one already, which I think is something like Why Do I Sometimes Feel Sad? So there's a lot of these. They've gone through like kind of variations in this series. So there's quite a few that are to do with weather. There's quite a lot that are to do with social skills, like getting dressed or going to the toilet, or there's the one about why do I have to go to school. And then recently they've branched out into more feelings-based discussion, which is obviously so important. So this one is about Why Do I Sometimes Feel Angry? The books are really well structured. So they follow quite a logical sequence as you go through them. So this one is like, why might you feel angry? The author researches really heavily on these books, to the point that she'll email round to ask if anyone has a child of a particular age and like, what do they feel about certain things? So everything is based on actual things from actual people's children, which I really like. So they're super relatable. So this one is like feeling angry that the brother got 2 scoops of ice cream, she just got 1. She's on crutches, so she's missing out. Her brother's just knocked over her tower. There's a lot about siblings in here, which I think is really useful. Questioning, is it bad to feel angry? I really love this bit where it says, like, don't pretend you're fine because it will make it worse. So it's kind of encouraging children to talk about their feelings. This bit shows how everyone shows their anger in different ways. So again, it's helping kids to understand that everyone is different and people express themselves in different ways, and that's all fine. Advice on what to do if you feel angry. How can you feel more calm? And will I feel angry again? Super, super reassuring books, great to read one-on-one with children, but I also think these are perfect for nurseries. They're great for I know not all of you are in the UK. In the UK, we have the early years foundation stages. So that is like late, like 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds. And there's a lot of criteria about talking to children about feelings, getting them to understand their feelings and emotions. And these books definitely tick all of those boxes. So this series is perfect because it's basically something for everything. So there's your more like weather, world around us. There's your social skills for helping parents to talk to children about those things. And now there's a whole range about feelings too. And they're £7.99, which I think is a very good price point for something that's such a great quality. So that's that one. The next one, we did not have any of these left in the office for me to show you. All About You and Your Body. I've got some spreads to show you of that. Some of these books are in my daughter's bedroom, but she's gone to sleep. And those of you that have watched a lot of these know that she regularly makes an appearance, and I really didn't want to make her an appearance. So I didn't want to risk creeping in to find these books. So if you're not familiar with this series, it's a best-selling series for us as a sales division. You've got all about families, friends, diversity, worries and fears, and feelings. We found that All About Family ones was really, really good for my daughter. My husband's parents are divorced, and she was really trying to work it out in her head. And that was super helpful for showing her different families and how different families function. And again, they're really great at reflecting, trying their best to reflect as many different realities as possible, so children can really see themselves and their friends in these books. They're quite large hardback books. There aren't any flaps or anything in them, but they're just really good for having those conversations with children. My daughter's nursery has quite well, she doesn't go to nursery anymore, she's at school. My son's nursery has quite a few of these books, so they're obviously very useful for the educational establishments just to have as like a reference guide. So in April, we are getting All About You and Your Body. So here are some spreads from it. So this talks about all the amazing things that your body can do. So again, helping children to like see their own reality in this. Talking about like how you grow and change and actually going backwards. I quite like this thing about even if you can do most of these things, have you always been able to do them? Which do you think you had to learn? So again, showing children that things just take time and take practice, and you're not going to be perfect at everything straight away. So you've got the growing and changing and all the development. My daughter is in reception at school. She's literally just done this exact thing at school about how you grow and change and develop. And there's loads and loads of pages, but I only had a few spreads that I could find to show you. They talk about your senses. And what I like about this is it talks about not everyone has all of the senses. Kind of some people might have an impairment to one of their senses, which I think is really, really helpful for children to understand that everyone is different. And again, to see their own realities reflected in these books. There's a lot of questions throughout these books as well to get kids to actively engage in the things they're talking about. And I think we've been missing a body book for really quite young children to be able to learn more about their bodies, to be able to talk about them, for adults to be able to have those conversations with children. So I think this is a much needed addition to this very popular series. Next on my list, very excited about these. So these are sound books. They're vehicle themed. They're the cheaper sound books. So we've got 2 price points for sound books. One is more the £7.99 price point. They're much smaller in format. The front covers do tend to be slightly flimsy, I will say. And then you've got the bigger soundbook formats that are you more like £11.99 books. So these I feel are quite a good impulse purchase buy. They've gone for your popular vehicles like your fire engine and your tractor. They've got great fun characters. I will be purchasing both of these for my son. They just look excellent. And I think the thing that is so great about the sound chip books is that children can use them from such an early age of pressing them and getting the sounds. And my son will actively look for all the buttons on the page to press because he knows like which one's going to make the sound, and could do that from quite an early age. So I think I personally, some of you may disagree with me in the chat. I personally prefer the sound chip books to the ones where they've got the sounds on the side and they've got to press them, because I think like finding the coordinating page is just not as good as pressing them as you go along. So I've got some spreads from Fire Engine, which I quite like because it is that active engagement with your child. So there are lots of slow cars on the road today. We need to get past them. So let's put the siren on. What sound does it make? So it's actively getting your child to take action, press the sounds and help the fire engine. And again, like that question and answer that is so great for their early development. Again, you've got that situation of something's happened, so let's press the sound and then something else will happen. So again, it's that like cause and effect for children of knowing something happens, something else happens in relation to it. So I do think, again, it's all this subtle learning that children can do while enjoying a really brilliant book. And also just the dog firemen are just great. The next one, completely different tone, is Me and My Hair. So this is recommended for 6+, which felt slightly old to me compared to the content, which I think would be fine for like a 4 or 5-year-old as well. So this is coming out in June. It is going to be a series, but it's not kind of fully fledged what the other topics are going to be. So this one is all about me and my hair. And the blurb for this book is, so the kind of strapline is a heartwarming journey of learning to love the hair you have and the person you are. So really lovely moral to this. And the blurb is, follow Kyra as she shares her thoughts and feelings about her amazing afro hair and the fact she learns about all kinds of hair types and styles. After a trip to the hairdressers, Kyra's school friends have lots of questions for her, and she has lots for them too. Learn about straight hair and coily hair, red hair and black hair, cornrows and French braids, and more in this celebration of all things hair. So it's super positive and super inclusive. Here are some of the spreads. So Kyra, just a glorious character, really, really relatable, likes your classic shopping football drawing, which I feel like many children will like at least one of those things, and talks about how her hair is different to her friend's hair. Obviously, as we all know, children ask questions all the time. Sometimes you'd rather they didn't ask some of the questions they asked, especially in public, but they do. So this book, I think, is just really great for talking about hair, and kind of like just demystifies a lot of things. Like, actually, you know, it's not okay to just stroke someone's hair because it's different to yours. That's quite annoying. Kyra kind of does talk about maybe not liking stuff all the time, of being different, but her mum's very focused on being proud of who she is and her hair. It talks about the full experience of the hairdressers and afro hair and all the different styles you can have it in, and how it works. This page I really love. So this is towards the end of the book, where she talks about how hair means different things to different people. So all different kinds of hair and how people wear it. And she talks about all the different things that she's going to do but she's always going to be her. So it's fine to try lots of different hairstyles, but you should love the person you are, love the hair you're born with, and really embrace that. So it's this kind of super positive exploration of hair, and just a like perfect way of introducing, particularly if your child is white and maybe isn't as aware of different hair types, then it's a really great way of exploring that with them. Also, it's a really great way of celebrating your own hair. If you do have afro hair, like feeling proud of it and celebrating it, just as Kyra does. So I think it's a really lovely, inclusive, explorative book that is friendly and safe and answers all the questions that children might have. So that's me and my hair. Now, the next one I was very excited about because 100 Things to Know. I know loads of you love this series and sell lots and lots of it. There are more than 10 books, because I remember when they hit 1,000 Things to Know and it was a big deal. But the one that is coming out in July is 100 Things to Know about sport. Now, I know lots of you sell 50 football skills like there is no tomorrow at your school events, and you don't really have lots and lots of alternatives to 50 football skills. I think you do now with 100 Things to Know about sport. Now, this is coming out at a similar time to the Olympics, although the Olympics is very closely trademarked, so you can't use the word Olympics in a lot of things. But the sporting event that is happening in 2024 in the summer, this book is perfectly timed for that. So it's a topic that definitely needed to be explored in 100 Things to Know. My brother would have absolutely loved this book growing up, and I just think it's great to explore something different. I've got some of the spreads from it for you. There's this bar is at the top, and I don't know how well you can see, but then if I move, I'll move it down so at least you can see the tops of this. So you've got facts about cheetahs and para sprinters, and I did not actually know that the running blades were designed based on cheetahs. This is the thing I love about this series, that even as an adult, I think you can learn so much. If you're not familiar with it, definitely get one, enjoy flicking through them. So it is what it says on the tin. There are 100 facts. You can open them in any random order. Kids love to race each other reading these books, like, I'm up to fact like 78. What are you on? And I used to be a secondary English teacher. These would have been a real crowd pleaser in a library lesson. And I think kids would have actively enjoyed reading them and engaging with them. And sometimes it's nice just to be able to open a book on any page you like and just see what fact it's going to give you that day. And yeah, I think sport is definitely going to be a bestseller in this series. Here's some more examples of this. I did not know that Ultimate Frisbee was inspired by UFOs and cherry pies, but now I do. Huddles help to hide a secret sign language. This one I enjoyed. I like running, and I thought to myself, I'm not sure I'm prepared to follow this intense training regime, but it's good to know what the elite athletes are doing with their time. And again, just general, really fun, interesting, original, unusual facts on every page. So hopefully you guys are pleased about 100 Things to Know about sport. If you have any more topics that you think there are 100 things to know on and you know your customers would like them, please do add them into the chat. Next is another series that's got a number of titles in it. This is 24 Hours in the Ocean. So this series I think is absolutely brilliant. I know lots of you sell it alongside graphic novels at your event because they're very similar in style. I don't have any spreads to show you from this one, so I'm going to show you a different book in case you're not familiar with the series, so you can see what it's like. So kind of like the puzzle adventures, they really experiment with format. So you've got you've got kind of basic things that are great to find in a non-fiction book, like you've got your contents page at the front, you have got a glossary and an index at the back. So I always think it's great for, obviously kids have got the internet, but I think it's great for them to know how to navigate a book and how to find out things that they want to find out, like we used to in the olden days, using an index of a book or using the contents page. It's got quick links. and quite literally it takes you through 24 hours in a location. So you follow a character through the story. So 24 hours in the ocean says, join two scientists as they climb inside a high-tech submersible and descend into the darkest depths of the Pacific Ocean, meet strange-looking creatures thousands of miles below the surface, and explore alien landscapes, discover how experiments are performed at the bottom of the ocean, what happens after a whale dies, and what makes extremophiles so extreme. I think there was a real rising in the interest in submarines, wasn't there, after the obviously very tragic Titanic submersible. So I think this is still kind of on people's radars. There's always a fascination, isn't there, with the ocean and what is really going on beneath the surface. Really freaks me out, actually, the idea of going in a submarine, I have to say, and going all that way underwater. But if it doesn't freak you out, you might really enjoy this book. But I think there's a definite fascination of exploring the unknown for children. So, like I said, you quite literally have 24 hours following the characters. So you'll have some that are like comic strip. You have others, like this one's got a map. There's a really cool, page in this one, all about underwater wildlife. Is quite heavy on the comic strip, hence why I said I know a lot of you sell them alongside graphic novels. These are much simpler, I would say, to read than the graphic novels. And I realise I've now covered up the key information with this bar that I can't get to go anywhere else. So I'll move that. Here we go to the middle. Also, I thought these were £9.99. They're definitely not. They're £7.99, which I think is such an amazing price point. I think that's really good value for these books because they're fully illustrated. There's loads of pages. They're packed with information. This one's got a nice timeline. Basically, there is absolutely nothing not to like about these books. They're absolutely jam-packed with facts. You could open them on any page, but I feel like it is more logical to follow it from start to finish because there is like a build-up and a plot to follow. So it's kind of like a perfect combination of the fictional character, but that everything is based in fact, and it is that more subtle learning as you go along. I feel like if you've got customers that are kind of growing up with you, if they liked the Can We Really Help the series of that kind of like storytelling fact books, this is quite a nice step up, I would say. It's quite a big leap up from that series, but it's kind of that like early telling story telling non-fiction, and then you've got it in an older format. Although these are 7+, I think they age up quite nicely to the point that I think an 11-12-year-old would probably still enjoy this series. Please do comment in the chat about the age of the children you think are buying this series, but I think it ages up really nicely as well. So it's quite a versatile one for you to have at your stores, I think, because it will appeal to quite a wide range of customers. So yes, this is 24 hours. Again, I just think they're great because if you've read one and loved the format, then there's so many others in the series to choose from. Antarctica, I think, is my favourite. Do comment along with what your favourite 24 hours is, but I think the ocean sounds absolutely fascinating. So the last one in the main list is, many people know I am obsessed with this series because me and my son absolutely love them, is Listening for Llamas. So this series was originally branded as the Good Behaviour Guides, which I know put a lot of people off, myself included, because you felt like it was going to be a bit preachy to read. It's not in the slightest. I don't know how big she is outside the UK, but Julia Donaldson, I'd say, is probably the best known picture book author in the UK, and that's what these books feel like to me. I think it's the perfect time to get to know them now because I do think they're a perfect present because of them being hardback. Again, my son very handsy with the book and are still looking pretty pristine condition. They are the most brilliant, most amazing, fantastic stories. They're perfect for exposing children to a really wide range of vocabulary. They're rhyming from start to finish. They remind me a lot, again, I don't know how big she is outside the UK, of Rachel Bright. So she wrote The Lion Inside, The Koala Who Could, and the language used is very sophisticated, like this one. So they're fully illustrated, and the purpose of them is you learn to be polite, or to have table manners, or to be kind, or to share, or in the llama's case, to listen. But they don't feel preachy in the slightest. They're really, really fun, bouncy, engaging stories. Sharing for Sheep is my favourite. I think it's an absolute triumph. But I do think we were lacking good quality picture books with really fun stories, to the point that my kids both had loads from other publishers and hardly any from Usborne, because I didn't think the Usborne ones were that good in terms of plot until these came along. So if you've not read them yet, you haven't sold one yet, get one and see if you can sell some as Christmas presents, because you will not regret it. And I think the parents will thank you as well, because as we know, some children's books are not very well written. They drive you insane reading them over and over again. But these are just so fun to read. That is my TED talk on the Good Behaviour Guides that are no longer called the Good Behaviour Guides. But yeah, like, find one, familiarise yourselves with it, because I 100%, if you fall in love with them, I think you will sell loads and loads of these. Please comment in the chat if I've converted you at any point to these books, because I do go on about them a lot, but they're just so brilliant. The llama one, in case you're interested, here is the plot. Frank and Lola are two little llamas who never pay attention. And when Granny Llama tells them about the dangers of the mountainside, they're too busy playing ball to hear her. But will their encounters with the crumbly cliffs, slippy slopes, and fearsome goats help them to learn their listening lessons? Sounds great. I will be purchasing. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend these books. And they do go on and on about, and everything you read is talking about like how many words you should expose your children to on a daily basis. And these are so great, I think, for language development. And I cannot stress that highly enough. So those are my top picks for you guys for next year from our main list selection. Now on to fiction. And what I will say is half of these don't have covers, but I had a long meeting with our fiction director about which books were the very best and compiled the list with her. So I've sacrificed the showing you a cover to tell you the books I think are going to be really good. And I try to include some comparisons to books that I think are similar, if they're kind of less well-known authors, or if it's the first time we've published one of their books, so you get a kind of grasp of like where you might sell them to. So apologies, because usually when I talk about fiction, I've read it, and I have not read these because they've either not been fully written yet, or they're only just coming out in proof form. Some of you have Shadow Hall Academy. I've recently sent proofs to some of you. So do let me know what you think of this. But this one is being pitched as Stranger Things meets Enid Blyton with ghosts, which I thought was quite a strong pitch for this one. But essentially, this is set in a boarding school that is haunted with ghosts. This is from the author of the Aveline Jones series. There's definitely a rise in children wanting to read more thriller type books, and the more kind of gothic stories. Aveline Jones, I would say, like, is quite scary to read, but not so scary you're going to traumatize a child reader by reading it. I think he writes in a really kind of classically gothic style that I think is reminiscent of what we were maybe reading in our childhoods. Obviously, it is quite a different aesthetic and look to Shadow Hall Academy, but it's the same target age as Aveline Jones. So if you've got customers that have read all of those, this one does feel more feminine to me. I would say from the front cover, which is maybe a slight shame compared to Aveline Jones. But the blurb of this one says, when Lillian Jones starts at creepy, cold and bewilderingly large Shadow Hall Academy, she's nervous about making friends. And when her roommates tell her the school is haunted, she thinks they're just trying to scare the new girl. But then bizarre things start happening, tapping and whispers in the walls at night, tales of missing students and strange figures in the woods. Lillian discovers that not only are the school ghost stories true, but her new friends could be in danger. So she sets out to uncover the secrets of Shadow Hall Academy, whatever it takes. I always think there's something quite satisfying about these types of books, that you know there's going to be a resolution at the end, and it feels like there's always like a solid, secure ending. They are spooky. They are like read by torchlight type books. February, you've still got the Dark Nights, which I think are perfect for reading something like this. I think, yeah, if you've got customers that love the Phil Hickes books, they will love this. Then you can then move them on to books like This Book Kills when they get older. I think it's kind of that younger version. This Book Kills sold phenomenally well for us, and I think this is, yeah, like the younger reader would enjoy this. But equally, I don't know how much his books age up. They do feel quite primary to me, but this one looks a bit older in terms of the cover design. I know some of you have read some of the books in advance on NetGalley if you were in the business development program. So if you have read it, do comment with any thoughts you have. Next, also in February, is Sarah Hager Holt's The Fights That Make Us. If you're not familiar with Sarah Hager Holt's books, she is an amazing writer and she does really brilliant author events for schools. So I 100% recommend her. I was lucky enough to go along to one of her events in the summer that she ran with one of our partners. And yeah, it was a brilliant event at a secondary school. It was a creative writing workshop and she got them so engaged and she was just absolutely brilliant. Her books are, I would say, real easy reads. So you read them and you could just fly through them. You don't have to think too hard. You can just really, really enjoy the plot. My friend's daughter she is 12. She'd all but stopped reading until I gave her Nothing Ever Happens Here. And she was absolutely hooked because it's just easy and engaging to read. Sarah's daughters, I think they're slightly older now, but she's got 2 secondary school age daughters. So the characters the voices are very good. They feel very, very authentic. And I think that's because she's got kids that age. So all her books have LGBTQ+ themes. So Nothing Ever Happens Here, the main character's dad comes out as a trans woman. Proud of Me is twins who have 2 mums. The daughter's struggling with her sexuality and the son is desperate to find out who his biological father is. So you've got all those kind of issues there. Just Like Everyone Else is about surrogacy and a boy's mum becomes a surrogate for a gay couple and he starts questioning his own sexuality around that. The Fights That Make Us has a historical twist to it, which I haven't seen in any of her other books, which I think is great because I do think it broadens it up to a new age of reader. Just to know, all her other books were 9+ and this is 10+, so it is pitched slightly older. So the plot for this says, maybe there was a place in history for people like me, not on the edges of the story, but right in the centre. Jessie has recently come out as non-binary and is struggling to find their place at school and ideas for their project on lost stories from history. 35 years earlier, Jessie's cousin Lisa is falling with her best friend, but with new laws being introduced to restrict LGBT people's rights, they'll have to fight for the world to accept who they are. When Jessie stumbles across Lisa's teenage diary, they are fascinated and horrified by her stories of living a secret life and protesting in the streets. Now it's Jessie's turn to find a way to shine a spotlight on a history that mustn't be forgotten. So this all centres around the Section 28 laws that were in like relatively recently in the UK, like the 80s, up to, I want to say like the early 2000s. It's publishing in February, which is LGBT+ History Month in the UK. So like a really, really important book to raise awareness. I do think her books are great for adults to read as well, to help them to understand what their own children might be going through at school and the conversations that their own children are having. So if you do run a book club, I'd say it's well worth doing some of Sarah's books to help adult readers to better understand the world their children are growing up in. And yeah, I just think her books are absolutely perfect for reluctant readers to get them back into reading. This next one, so slightly cheated because this author has 2 coming out. So she wrote Ace of Spades, which did sell really well for us actually. We don't sell loads of YA, but that one sold really well. That was a thriller. Her 2 books that are coming out in 2024, one is a thriller, the other is a rom-com. So completely different genres. This author has one of the World Book Day books for Usborne. So in the UK, children are able to swap a token for this book. We can't sell it, but actually I think it's a really good way to introduce a whole new world of readers to her books that they'll then buy from you guys. So where Four Eves and a Funeral is the one that is more similar to the Doomsday Date. The Doomsday Date is the World Book Day book, and that is a rom-com. So is Four Eves and a Funeral, that she's co-written with another author. It's split narrative. She writes one character, the other author writes the other one. It sounds exceptional, Four Eves and a Funeral, and I just think it's got a really great book name. That's not the final cover, just as an FYI on that one. So Four Eves and a Funeral, the plot is Saeed Hussein hates Tiwa Olatunyi, and Tiwa would happily never see Saeed again in her life. Growing up, the two were inseparable, but they have barely spoken since the incident many Eves ago, and both of them would like to keep it that way. But when Saeed comes home for a funeral and the town's Islamic centre burns down on the same day, they have to face each other again and sparks fly. Both of them want to see the Islamic centre rebuilt. For Tiwa, it represents the community that she loves and a way to keep her fractured family together. For Saeed, it's an opportunity to build his portfolio for his secret application to art school, where he hopes that he'll be able to pursue his dreams of becoming an artist rather than a doctor. Working with your sworn enemy is never easy, and this could be the hardest thing that Saeed and Tiwa have ever done. Can they save the Islamic Centre, Eid, and their relationship? So it's your kind of typical crowd pleaser rom-com. Again, really easy read, that kind of escapism where you basically know what's going to happen and you know they're going to end up together at the end. And I think for that one's younger, you'll notice on the slides, the Four Eves and a Funeral is 12 plus, which I think is great that we've got some slightly younger teen fiction. Where Sleeping Girls Lie is 14 plus, and I will read you what that's about, but that sounds very much like it is 14 plus. You wouldn't recommend it to a younger reader. So she's got a rom-com, which sounds great for your kind of escapism, perfect for kids that have got a lot of set texts at school and, to be honest, just need something easy to escape into. Again, really good for adult book clubs if you run them, or secondary schools if you're working with them. Where Sleeping Girls Lie is a thriller. So this one is much more similar to Ace of Spades. So if you had customers that liked Ace of Spades, or you did it with your book club and they liked it, this is the one that is more similar. It does sound quite dark in plot, and it does deal with some quite serious issues. So the plot of this one says, this was a mistake, the voice in her head whispered. You should never have come. Sadie Hussein is the new girl at the prestigious Alfred Nobel Academy. She has no idea what to expect of her mysterious new boarding school, an institution steeped in tradition and secrets. But she certainly didn't imagine her roommate Elizabeth to go missing on her first night, or for people to think Sadie had something to do with it. Suddenly, everyone is talking about Sadie, including the unholy trinity, the three most popular girls at school. Swept up in their circles, Sadie can't shake the sense that there's more to Elizabeth's disappearance, especially as the teachers don't seem to care. And then a student is found dead. It's clear there's more to Alfred Nobel Academy and its students than Sadie could have imagined, and she must race to uncover the truth. But secrets lurk around every corner, and beneath every surface, secrets that rival even her own. You find out that something awful has happened to her sister, and she's basically gone undercover to this boarding school to expose the truth of what happened to her sister and find out what happened to her. Like I said, it's very dark. Going to be great for adult book clubs, going to be great for older teen readers. Fans of This Book Kills, I think, would really like it as well. So it's great to have a lot from this author. And I think because she's got the World Book Day coverage, her name will become much more popular. So hopefully people will be actively looking for her books and coming to you guys to buy them. Okay, so next, on a completely different note, is The Royal Jewel Plot. So this is the second book in the A.M. Howell series, Mysteries at Sea. So the first one is already out, and that's Peril on the Atlantic. You might be familiar with her. I've seen Anne Croxford is on this Zoom, and I know Anne is a big A.M. Howell fan, as am I. Childhood Lucy would have been obsessed with these books. They're just great. So her books are all historical. I would say the first four she wrote do feel very feminine to read. These two are slightly younger and definitely much more neutral. I do think they fill a gap in the market for you guys to sell. So this is another series that I would say is like a must have if you've got a market stall, if you are doing any school events. I think it's a must because I think it hits a lot of different angles. So you've got the historical angle. So these are set, let me double check the year. This is set in... Okay, well, helpfully, the product description does not tell me the year that this is set in. The first one is pre-First World War, I think, references the Titanic sinking as a fairly recent event. So you've got the historical detail. You've also got the mystery and the sense of kind of like detective and solving those mysteries. So I think you're hitting your historical readers and you're hitting your fans of mysteries. And I think it's great for challenging younger, more able readers to challenge themselves and to explore a bit more. I think if you had a niche fans that have kind of raced through all of that and want something with a bit more depth maybe to sink their teeth into, this series would be great. I'm trying to think of what people might have read before they would get to this series. Any thoughts? Much appreciated actually in the comments. The most obvious one I can think of is Anisha, but obviously it doesn't really hit the historical element. I guess if you've got a reader that was really enjoying the puzzle adventures from the sense of like solving a mystery and the history element, you could sway it that way and cross-sell that way. But these books are just real kind of, fun's not the right word, but they're kind of like a gripping adventure read. They're set on ships. They're inspired by A.M. Howell's own childhood. She was not alive at the same time period of these guys, but she basically grew up on ships. And this one, so the plot of this one, I do think you need to read the first one before you read this one. I know that's always a question people get asked about a series. The first one, you really meet the characters and you learn about the connection between Alice and Sunny. So I think you need to read that so you've been introduced to them, you understand their connection before you then read this one. I don't think they can necessarily be read out of order. So it says, Alice and Sunny are excited for their summer trip, sailing on the luxurious yacht, the Lady Rose. They're even more excited when they find out the King of England is going to be on board too. There's also a precious jewel on the boat, a rare opal kept in a tank protected by a poisonous octopus. Until one morning, Alice discovers that the opal and octopus are both missing. The search is on to retrieve the priceless gem before the ship reaches its destination and everyone on board finds themselves in serious trouble. As Alice and Sunny's investigations take them closer to the truth, they realise that everyone on the Lady Rose seems to have a secret, maybe even the king himself. So like I said, it's steeped in history. It's really, really well researched. And it involves things like the role of female sailors, the royal family's relationship with the press. There's a lot of octopus facts. So I think it's just really, really great for kids that like history, like a mystery. Highly, highly recommend you have these books as staples at your events. Next up, this sounds amazing. This is not the cover, this is the draft cover. I'll try and move this right down to the bottom. So this is coming in May and it's The Girl Who Couldn't Lie. I've put some books on the side that I thought were a vague comparison, but I couldn't find anything that is like really like, if you love this, you will definitely love this. So this, the plot of this one is Priya Shah lies a lot. She pretends everything in her life is perfect so she doesn't disappoint anyone. But when she puts on a bangle left to her by her bar, the one person she was always honest with, she finds herself unable to lie. Priya is mortified. She tells her dad she hates his cooking. She tells Dan Zhang about her huge crush on him. She shares her best friend's secrets at school. She can't get the bangle off and she can't stop the truths pouring out of her. As more things go wrong and Priya's truth-telling spirals out of control, can Priya learn to be honest without hurting the people she loves? So this has this sense of magic realism because of the bangle, which is why I included A Glass House of Stars in there. But it feels to me more like a Being Miss Nobody or A Quiet Storm, and it's all about finding your voice. It's contemporary, there's a school setting, there's some really great friendships in it, and basically it's about a girl who wants her parents to be proud of her. She doesn't want to cause any trouble, so she doesn't really ever say the truth because she doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So she's not really enjoying her gymnastics class, but she doesn't want to disappoint her parents, so she just keeps going with it. She really likes the boy, but she doesn't know how to talk to him, so she just doesn't talk about it. So the bangle is almost like her grand way of getting her to kind of be more herself and be more true to herself, because she never really kind of fully lets herself be herself, because she's really worried about what other people think, which I think is so classic and common, and we're all too concerned about what people think. And then obviously the worst thing happens is she has this bangle and then it all comes out. So yeah, I think it is just the importance of telling your own truth, the importance of being honest, and the importance of actually like making yourself your priority. There are 3 books coming from this author. They're not a series, they're standalones, but I think it just sounds like a really, really amazing book. Again, quite an easy read, really relatable, and I think another really great one for you guys to add to your books that you know are just going to be really popular at school book fairs. The next one is already out in hardback, but this is the paperback form. I know it's harder for you guys to sell hardbacks because they're just obviously so much more expensive. I think this time of year is probably the best time of year to sell your hardbacks for your gifts. Obviously, I appreciate it's more of a stretch the rest of the year. So this is Ardea Kalbara and the Circle of Shamans. So I know some of you will have read this one. So this one they pitched as a younger Gilded Ones. So it is that fantasy setting that does have some truth to it because it's based on the author's own experience of shamanic tribes in Africa. So the main character, it starts with the main character, Ardea, and I read this, but I have to say I read it about a year ago. So I'm going to read the blog because I'm not going to describe this well. So life in the swamplands is tough for 12-year-old orphan Ardea. Her aunt and uncle believe she is an Ogbanji, a demon-possessed child thought to bring misfortune. So that is based on like the author's own actual experience of people genuinely believing children were possessed and treating them appallingly. And when Ardea manifests mysterious powers, accidentally destroying her village, she starts to think they might be right. Ardea flees to the faraway Academy of Shamans, hoping someone at the school can figure out what is wrong with her and fix it. But she doesn't expect to stumble across a bunch of squabbling deities with a secret. Joining forces with a snarky goddess, a 500-year-old warrior girl, and a status-obsessed soldier boy, Ardea goes on a mission through hidden realms to save her kingdom. But if she is to succeed, she must learn to wield her mysterious powers and figure out who she really is. This is real kind of like classic fantasy, but yeah, does have that grounding in reality. It's a brilliant main character, and it is all about her finding out her voice. Again, she is quite ashamed of her powers at the start of the novel, and she really has to learn to embrace who she is, be proud of who she is, and learn to control her powers and use them for good. Again, you've got that classic like children solving the world's problems, which is always great, obviously, for children to read about children being the heroes of the stories. It's a really strong female lead character, but I do think it's very gender neutral to read. You've got the kind of family relationships. So her aunt and uncle are awful, and you find out quite a lot about them at the start of the book, and they're really awful to her. She's just really easy to connect with, and you just want everything to be okay for her. You want her to save the day, you want her to solve the problems, and the friendships she makes along the way are really great, and she learns her own value throughout the book. So it is a bit Gilded Ones-y, but just much younger. I don't think there's any massive real comparisons in books we've got, so I kind of drew upon those 3. So the Darkness of Dragons, you kind of got like the outcasted character that makes the friends, that real sense of fantasy, and also like good versus evil. Book of Stolen Dreams, again, it's that like really intense fantasy, children saving the day. And then Castle of Tangled Magic, I think Sophie Anderson writes so beautifully, and the worlds she creates are so incredible. This is really strong on the world building. Like, she's created this whole imaginary world, and it's so vivid and real, which is why I included her. But I do think it is something a bit different that we don't really have as much, because although it's fantasy, it feels a bit more relatable than, like, I'm not sure how much you can relate to A Darkness of Dragons, because it's clearly not real, whereas this feels a bit more like it could be in a weird way. So that's Ardia Kalbara, that I think will be a really good one for you guys to have in your regular repertoire of fiction. This one I don't have a cover for. So this is a new one by Claire Povey, so that's coming in June 2024. She wrote The Unexpected Tale of Bastien Bonlever, but this is quite different. I think she's an amazing writer, but Bastien Bonlever was quite literary and set in France in the past. This isn't like this at all. So it's got her amazing writing style, but the plot sounds great. So the plot is Nellie Wanderday, one of the greatest explorers the world has ever known, has gone missing on her latest expedition. When a mysterious stranger appears, Flo and Joseph Wanderday don't expect to discover sinister secrets about the real reason for their mother's trip. Realising this was no ordinary expedition, and that supposed Earth hero Sir Frederick Titan is not all he claims to be, Flo and Joseph must team up with investigative journalists Marianne Delamere and their friends Funmi and Isaac. It's time for them to set out on their own quest across the ocean to save their mother, expose Titan's crimes against nature, and bring down the Titan empire once and for all. So the way Rebecca, our fiction director, pitched it to me, not pitched it, described it. So it's not historical, so this feels really contemporary. So you've got the brother-sister combination. The mum is a famous documentary maker, and she used to be part of a group called the Titans. She leaves that group, and it turns out she's uncovered some horrible truths about them. So the leader of the Titans acts like he's some kind of David Attenborough figure. So if you're based in the UK, obviously David Attenborough, massive deal. He would never do anything nefarious. This guy does. So makes out like he's kind of all about the animals and saving the planet, but she's uncovered this deep, dark secret about him. Flo and Joe think she's just gone off on a general mission. Then when she goes missing, they search around their apartment. They find a hidden room, and in the hidden room is all the work she's done trying to uncover the truth behind the Titans and the things they're plotting. It then apparently goes a bit James Bond-like, where they go over to try and save their mum. There's a lot of technology that they're using. So I think for kids that are into like the high tech, the fast paced action, maybe like your 21% Monster readers, this could be an alternative for them. So it's like high tech, fast paced. There's some kind of like Aquaman that's being created that's going to cause all kinds of problems. So you've got like contemporary, but then with quite a lot of tech that's really well researched, apparently. So kind of like 21% Monster, quite action and adventure, great brother-sister combo as the cast. I think, obviously, it feels a bit younger than 21% Monster, but I think, again, it's maybe filling that kind of gap, that it's not like your Jenny Pearson books, which are like focused on your humour, but you're also your deeper issues. This is more like an action and adventure book, but most of our action and adventure books, I would say, are set in the past. This one is not. This one feels like very, very contemporary. Might be good for Alex Neptune fans actually as well. So I think it's going to be another good one, and hopefully they do a really good cover for this one. There's going to be 2 books in this series as well, so that do follow on from each other. So I think if you've got Bastien Bonlever fans, obviously it's the same author, but it does sound incredibly different, other than the fact it's an adventure series. This one is the next one from Kimberly Whittam. If you've not read Quiet Storm, you have to read Quiet Storm. Quiet Storm is sensational. Just read it. So the author Kimberly Whittam works in a secondary school. Again, she captures character voice really, really well. This one apparently is slightly older to read than Quiet Storm. So Quiet Storm, Storm is in year 7, so she is 11 or 12. Whereas this character is 13. Storm's got really close family relationships. This one's much more trying, but the similarity between the two of them is the amazing friendships the main character makes. So if you haven't read Quiet Storm, the friendships she makes with the people she meets at running club are just amazing. Super relatable, super well written. So Angel Cake, that is due in July. The plot is, when 13-year-old Angel's mum is sectioned, her life is turned upside down. Passed from one set of foster parents to another with no word from her mum, her behaviour goes from bad to worse at school as she clashes with her teachers and gets into fights. Finally, Angel's head teacher gives her an ultimatum: turn things around or be expelled. Determined not to be sent away from her friends, Angel tries her best to redeem herself. The student council fundraiser seems the perfect chance to prove she can behave, and she throws herself into preparations, finding a new love of baking along the way. But it's hard to be good when everyone expects you to be bad and Angel is running out of chances. Rebecca said to me this was like a modern day Tracy Beaker, if any of you are familiar with Jacqueline Wilson. It's very similar in style to like Sarah Hager Holt's books or Tamsin Winter's books. So if you've got fans of either of those books, number 1, they should read Quiet Storm. Number 2, they should read this one. It is quite different. And obviously Quiet Storm that has this amazing family unit around her, and Angel doesn't have that at all. So you meet her just as her mum is being sectioned, and you kind of really see how the system is really letting her down. Like quite an emotional read. Again, I'd say probably a tougher read than Quiet Storm, but just a really important one for teens to read. It is all about her finding her sense of self. So Quiet Storm, the main character has some friends that aren't the greatest influence and, to be honest, aren't the nicest people. It's the same in this one, that the main character gets into baking and she makes this lovely group of friends in the baking club, but she's got her original set of friends that are just trying to bring her down. And it's that like inside conflict of like the safe friends that she knows, but she knows they're not good for her, compared to the new friends. And I think one of the things she deals with so well is friendship. And actually it's hard when you go to secondary school and you're trying to find your place and learn who you are and establish those friendships. It sounds incredible and super important, and is dealing with all those issues that teens face, like peer pressure. I mean, hopefully most people don't have to deal with what she's dealing with in terms of her family. But it does, apparently it is very positive. It wasn't necessarily the most positive experience, positive description, but it is uplifting in what she's able to do against all odds. So I think that's going to be another really great one for you guys, particularly if you've got older customers. This one, Speed Wheels 3000, was supposed to be coming out pretty soon, and it sounds like it is slipped and is being pushed back. Jenny Pearson has 2 books coming out this year, but the order of them might actually now be reversed, but that's not confirmed, so don't spread that widely. So you've got Speed Wheels 3000, The Race Against Crime. That's not going to be the cover, but at least it gives you an idea. And The Spectacular Survival of Sebastian Sunrise, there is no cover for that as of yet. So Speed Wheels 3000 is, I'll read you the descriptions because I'm not going to be able to describe it as well. So this one is, Evie Clutterbuck is ready for the adventure of a lifetime. She's joining her dad on the Speed Wheels 3000, the most exciting, most famous, most bonkers car race in the whole world, driving through 7 countries and competing in challenges in their trusty car toots. There are just a few small problems. Evie's not supposed to have snuck into the car boot. She's picked up a very stinky dog along the way. She and her dad have been accused of stealing $4 million worth of gold. Their car is currently dangling off the edge of a cliff. Can Evie solve the mystery of the gold robbery, get the race back on track, and connect with her distant dad so that together they can become the ultimate Speed Wheels racing champions? This sounds super fun. If you haven't read any of Jenny Pearson's books, or you're relatively new to Usborne, they're going to be some of your best sellers, I think. They're real crowd pleasers. The covers are always amazing, great for reluctant readers. She does male, she's a mum of 2 boys and she's a primary school teacher, and I think she does male friendship really well, which I think is quite unusual in books. Obviously, having said that, this one's got a female lead. Her books are always really funny, but they do always deal with a more serious issue. The Boy Who Made Monsters, I would say, is probably her most serious of her books. That one was a real tearjerker. The others, maybe not quite as serious in their dealing of issues. So this one, yeah, has got your car racing. It's described as like a wacky racers type book. It's quite slapstick humor in places. It just sounds really, really fun. The other one might not also be called The Spectacular Survival of Sebastian Sunrise, because I know the editor wants to just call it Shipwrecked, because she thinks that's very lengthy. But all Jenny's titles tend to be quite lengthy, to be honest. So Sebastian Sunrise sounds like a less violent version of now I can't remember that. What is the name of the book where the kids are shipwrecked on an island? And Lord of the Flies. It sounds like a much violent version of Lord of the Flies to me. So basically you've got Sebastian Sunrise, who goes on this summer camp, and he's maybe not doing as well as he should do at school, and he goes to this summer camp at this elite school, and you've got this kind of group of like perfect, tall, muscular looking elite children. And Sebastian thinks to himself, I'm not standing for this. I'm going to challenge them to a late night boat race. Really ridiculous thing to do. They set off on the boat race, and two rival teams, so him and his two best friends and the other group of children, there's this big storm that happens, and they both end up shipwrecked on different islands. So it's that kind of like classic survival story that I think is super popular with children. Of they're shipwrecked on an island, so they have to like build a shelter, they have to find a way of making food and a way of surviving on this island until they're rescued. However, in and amongst all of that, pirates land on the island, and there's turtles, and the pirates want to steal the turtle eggs, and it's up to Sebastian and his friends and the group of rival children that have now found their way onto their island to save the turtles, convince the pirates there's a monster on the island, they should leave the island so that they can save the turtles. So it's about like overcoming differences, you've got environmental factors, it's about kids standing up for what's right, building friendships, learning to be more independent. It just sounds like really, really great. It sounds quite different, actually, I think, for her books because of the setting. And it doesn't, the others are quite family focused, I think, in terms of issues. And it's usually something to do with the parents. This doesn't seem quite like that. It's more about the kids and them and themselves. But I think it sounds really great. It's due out in the summer. I think will be a really good summer read with the Shipwrecked. I'm aware I've gone over time. I knew I was going to with book spelling, a book discussion about all the best books of 2024. But this is the last one next. So the last one also doesn't have a cover because it's not out until September. And this is called Witch Spark by Dominique Valente. So this is like a historical witch story. I'm going to read you the blurb because it'll be a better description than I can give you. So it says, 2 aspiring witches, 1 special teacher, a magical living house, and a talking dragon butler fight for what's right in this major new series from best-selling author of Starfell. So this author used to write for a different publisher, but has chosen to publish this book with Usborne. So it's a well-known author that hopefully people should have heard of. So again, it's a reason for them to buy this book from you because her other series was best-selling. So Eglantine Bury is desperate. Her family and their magical house are being threatened by a terrifyingly powerful whistle witch. Eglantine has learned to use magic to save them, but she can't seem to find her spark. Across the land, Princess Victoria faces her own danger as her secret magical powers start to spiral out of control and cause chaos in the palace. Eglantine and Victoria both turn to the disgraced Miss Hegarty's correspondence course for help. Miss Hegarty's lessons are powerful, but are they a match for the dangers these 2 aspiring witches must face? To note, Princess Victoria is the child Queen Victoria that the author has made up that is involved in this story. There are a few key selling points for this one. So it is historical, so you've got Queen Victoria as a child, It's set in this world of magic where you either have witch spark or you don't, and you have to take a test to find out if you have witch spark. The main character, and if you don't have it, you're almost kind of like rejected from that world. The main character fails the test, and she doesn't really know why, because her mum, who's no longer with us, had it, so she doesn't understand why she doesn't. So it's all about her like finding her witch spark and learning how to use it. The main character has a limb difference. So the author has a limb difference, so she doesn't have a hand on one of her arms. And the main character is the same. It's not kind of a major feature of the plot, but I thought it was worth noting, because obviously it's just a character that's more reflective of some people's realities. And it is all about like accepting who you are, finding your own strength and using that. Obviously you've got the whole witch theme. Rebecca said it's quite like Wednesday-ish, so if anyone is really into that TV series, or you've got customers that you know of kind of that age, they will like this. It hits the historical angle as well, so you do have the history focus in there, you've got the fantasy focus, you've got the house that is kind of alive, which is why I referenced Castle of Tangled Magic, because it's all kind of going wrong with the house being alive. The closest comparison, so I included Mystery of the Night Watchers just for the historical reference and the sense of mystery to be solved. Castle of Tangled Magic, because you've got the house that is alive. Magic Born, I think from reading the blurb, have to say, confession, I have not read Magic Born, I think seems most similar in terms of historical setting, fantasy, most similar. So if you've got Peter Bunzel fans, I think they'll like this too. And then Spectacular's that whole sense of like not knowing you've got powers, finding your powers and learning how to deal with them. It sounds amazing. And yeah, like it's combining all things. So hopefully you guys will like that one when that one comes out too. So that was a very whistle stop talk, and I've obviously spoken really quickly, but I hope that was useful. Could you please share, oh, thank you for using the chat so actively. Could you please share in the chat which books you are most excited about? And I'm going to stop